As Republicans prepare their agenda when they take control of the House, they've been saying for a while that one of their big priorities is the investigations into the Biden family business. Specifically, we've talked about this a bunch, Hunter Biden and the laptop and what's on it. Now, Republicans have been involved in this story for 2 years, but is the media finally seeing the light? CBS News this morning came out with what they had been calling a commissioned and independent forensic poll review of Hunter Biden's laptop data. And I want to play you what they say they found.
The laptop data we had analyzed showed no evidence it was faked or tampered with.
There was one thing that got my attention, and that was a voicemail.
It's Dad. I called to tell you I love you. I love you more than the whole world, pal. I gotta get some help.
You're confident, based on your analysis, this is Hunter Biden's data and that it's real?
Yes.
Lanterman and his son, Sean, both digital forensic experts, recovered images of credit cards, a driver's license, social security number.
Just the sheer volume of what we're dealing with, it would be difficult, if not impossible, to fabricate.
Hey, I mean, better late than never, right? It's only been 2 years. Later tonight, CBS is also going to report that we landed on the moon. I mean, this is amazing. 2 years later, and they're finally coming to this conclusion. Unbelievable. But you're not going to believe this. In the end, after all that, CBS still managed to find a way to cover for Biden. Take a look.
After 2 years of scrutiny, the laptop has not produced evidence President Biden directly benefited from his son's business deals.
Oh, my gosh. Not directly. Anyway, that's just not true. And all media outlets are not seeing the light. Take a look at this line from the Associated Press. They wrote, Joe Biden has said he has never spoken to his son about his foreign business, and there are no indications that the federal investigation involves the president. That's simply not true. Republicans submitted a recording of Joe Biden leaving a voicemail for Hunter about a business deal with a Chinese energy company. It's out there. There's no denying it. No one's denied it. So we know that that's true. They just will literally go to any lengths to cover up. There's also whistleblowers. There's people like Tony Bobulinski who have said that they've got the emails and the documentation to prove that Joe Biden was intimately involved in the family business. But what do you expect? The establishment media have shifted their position on this 4 times in the past 2 years. Number one, the New York Post comes out with this bombshell report, October 2020, right before the election. So let's start with the first thing. The Washington Post fact checker suggested first, the laptop's just not real. It's not real. Then we move on to number 2. They say, okay, it's real, but it's just Russian disinformation. Then we go to number 3. They admit that the laptop isn't Russian disinformation, but it's real, but President Biden, he is not involved. Now we go to number 4. Okay, the story is now that there's no evidence that he has publicly emerged, that his decisions were affected by his son's dealings. You see the arc there? First, it's completely ridiculous. Now it's, okay, but we can't publicly prove that he has anything to do with it. Publicly prove? What does that mean? We've got voicemails. We've got witnesses, documentation. Publicly prove? Those are weasel words, Washington weasel words. By the way, moving on, because this could go on for hours, I want to remind you, back not too long ago, when candidate Biden, he was so outraged on the campaign trail over the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. He said what happened to Khashoggi was, quote, it shocked him to his very soul. That's a big thing. If it's going to shock you to your soul, right? Man, that's got to be a big thing. And he promised to change, if president, how the U.S. treats Saudi Arabia if he were president. Maybe he forgot, though, because the Biden administration just ruled on Thursday that MBS now has immunity in the case because as of last month, he's the new prime minister. The Washington Post slammed the decision, writing that President Biden is failing to uphold America's most cherished values. By going along with the scheme, President Biden is turning his back on on the fundamental principles of press freedom and equality. And it wasn't just the Post. Watch.
The Saudi Arabia policy, it's got to be one of, if not the most incoherent elements of Joe Biden's policy.
It's deeply embarrassing. I want to say humiliating for Biden to have gone seeking support from MBS and to have gotten basically the back of his hand.
Joe Biden is very aware of all the dimensions of the Saudi Arabian relationship. So to say we're going to make them a pariah, we're going to recenter our foreign policy around human rights, to come into office, to start to act on that, and then to have this dizzying reversal with when gas prices start rising, then the fist bump, then the retraction. It's just completely incoherent.
What are we getting in exchange for letting this thug get away with murder, Mr. President, other than the stink of complicity?
Now remember, it shocked him to his core, his soul. And now he's like, hey, by the way, you've got immunity. Unbelievable. I've seen a lot of hypocrisy in politics over 30 years. This is at the top of that list. Unbelievable. I got to move on, though, because Elon Musk this weekend reinstated former President Trump's Twitter account. If you recall, Trump was banned from Twitter and several other platforms in the aftermath of the January 6th incidents. And it left some never-Trumpers on the right all upset. They called it a terrible mistake and a gift to what Elon Musk was doing, a gift to the Democrats. Others, of course, are blaming Russia because Elon Musk made the decision after running an online poll, and they're claiming without evidence that it was all Russian bots. On Friday, CBS News announced that they were suspending their activity on Twitter out of an abundance of caution because they were so concerned about how Elon Musk was running Twitter and whether or not there were enough precautions in place. But check this out. One day, 16 hours and 31 minutes later, CBS News, they were back on Twitter. By the way, so far, Trump has not returned to Twitter. He's instead saying that he's going to stick with Truth Social. Right? We've talked about this before. It'll be interesting. I'm going to bet you that he does get back on Twitter before the end of 2022. That's just a personal bet. But so far, he's making the case that he's got to stay on there. In the last piece of news, President Biden, over the weekend, he turned 80. He will be the first president to do so in office. And that brings us to the big age-old question. How old is too old to be president? Well, some Democrats see age as a potential issue in 2024. Others came out in Biden's defense yesterday. Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips says he thinks Biden's done a wonderful job being the bridge he promised to be. I guess it's just an old bridge. But it's time for a new leader, generation of leaders. California Congressman Juan Vargas brushed off concerns about Biden's cognitive ability, saying everyone has trouble thinking of words from time to time. It's just that Biden has trouble all the time. And the chair of New Hampshire's Rockingham County Democrats, Larry Drake, compared Biden, check this out, to Tom Brady winning the Super Bowl at 43, saying that we need to reassess our views of aging. I don't think that was a very good comparison.